present to you the perspective of business development in a big pharma. And I hope that you can build on some of the things I'm going to say in some of the fabulous projects every one of you is conducting as we speak. First of all, my talk will be about giving you a bit of a context. Then I will talk about the unmet medical need, which we often forget to focus on because we're so busy in deal making and trying to pull our drugs through the pipeline. And then I will talk a little bit about opportunities and challenges and a very much changing environment, at least to say, for biotech and pharma. First of all, a chart that is frightening many of us, which is what's happening in the biotech sector. So for the past 5 years, as you all know, NASDAQ Biotech Index has appreciated over 250%, and is all pretty much evaporated early January this year, where we lost immediately all the gains of 2015. So for biotech, this is extremely stressful. We don't call it evaporation of value. We can also call it an adjustment, correction, because it is true that over the past few years, many of our colleagues consider that the valuation had reached highs that were hard to understand. And in the focus that I really want my talk to have, which is about focusing on getting medicine to patients, if the value of a company is not related to the value it will produce for patients, you can feel very much uncomfortable. So I would say that this correction is what it is. If I could predict to you what will happen, I certainly would not be here today. But I have the impression that it is not tomorrow that we'll get back into new highs. It will probably stay a bit prudent for the next few months and years. And I would venture to say that this is probably a good situation because let's remember the winners will still continue to grow. And that's what we all want so that medicine gets to suffering people. Nevertheless, valuation being high or not, M&A have been very active with over 400 deals in 2015 for an overall value of over 500 billion. So we can well say that big pharma and in fact biotechs have not been shy to go into acquisition spree because it is really important and critical and very challenging to keep a full pipeline. So even though you may have hundreds or thousands of scientists inside your company, you don't have any choice but to do deals on a continuous basis to de-risk your pipeline and make sure that it continues to be full. And we've seen everything from small companies to big companies buying each other. Providers are also buying each other. So, you know, what used to be a target for an acquisition to you is now a company that itself acquires other companies. So it is quite interesting to find yourself in competition with companies you were thinking about buying yourself. So, and this for sure will not stop. The great news is that there is more to come. This is a sort of a representation of what is happening on science, and we go from the microscope to understanding the DNA, and from understanding the DNA in years and years to understanding the DNA of a patient in days, actually. And I was very challenged when I had to put what is sexy. Oh, I don't know how to do this. But anyway, on the right, left-hand side of my slide, you see the new trends. We really understand better the genomic of a patient, the epigenetics, the expression of genes. We can understand and find new modalities that can address issues with DNA, with RNA. We can go into the cells, and we can also monitor patients on a continuous basis to reinvent the treatment over time. We can also harness the immune system of a patient to fight the disease itself, and this will not stop. What is extremely sure today is that science is truly booming. It doesn't mean that we're able to cure everything in a different way. If I can just take cancer immunotherapy, for melanoma, it's, I would say, close to a miracle. For lung cancer and bladder cancer, we're seeing some real breakthrough. Same goes with liquid cancers. But however, for many other cancers, we still don't know how to use the immune system to fight the tumors. And we do all this combination treatment, but it is not also very clear at the end of the day how we're going to treat a patient. So there is a lot to learn, and we'll see a little bit later that the data will play a key role. So a lot to learn, but no doubt the future will be better and better for patients, and hopefully then all of us will benefit from the situation. So we have a very strong ecosystem in the pharma industry and in science. We are a very small portion of scientists in the big pharma companies. And then around us, there is all the scientists in the biotechs. And then you have academia that also plays a very key role. And basically, you have millions of people teaming up to fight diseases. And us in the industry, we're a very small portion of it. And the challenge we have is to be able to reach out outside of our companies to the biotechs and beyond to academia and universities to be able to find the great ideas and find a system to foster them and finance them so that they can turn into medicine. So this is a very fragile balance because unfortunately or fortunately, the probability of launch of a good idea, I would say, is 0. The probability of launch of a project that starts to exist is 1%. The probability of launch of something that starts to be in animals is maybe 4%. And when we work on a pipeline, you spend more time burying projects than launching them. So it is extremely critical for you to be able to work in the ecosystem between the big pharma, the biotech, the startups that exist in academia, creating very strong links with venture capital firms and private equities who invest into science so that you're able over time to have a reasonably diversified pipeline that can turn into medicine, and those medicines can reach patients. Because let's not forget, you can have a medicine that has passed regulators but can still not get to patients because regulators will judge that the benefit is not worth a price that makes the drug economically satisfying for the company. So all these come into the equation early on as you develop your medicine. So needless to say, this equation and balance of a good ecosystem is critical for us to be able to do our mission, which is to get medicine to patients to cure their diseases. The great news is that most of what comes out of partnering projects, what comes out of all of us working together, turns into a medicine that gets to patients. In fact, the statistics show that most of the innovation is coming from a partnering project, or more likely to come from a partnering project. And the recent data that was issued by the KMR company, which does pipeline reviews of all pharma companies, showed that, in fact, partnering projects have twice as much probability of launch than in-house developed projects. And when you're in the partnering function, you understand why. It's because the filters that you have to go through in order to survive, it's almost a miracle if you're able to do a deal. So these very tight filters ensure that you do very thorough due diligence. And if at the end of the day you were able to align everybody, then most likely the probability of success is higher than a project that was developed in-house. So there it is. This is everyday life in a company like Roche. We screen thousands and thousands of projects. About 100 goes to a CDA, between 100 to 200. And at the end of the day, we sign about 50 deals a year, between 50 to 70. And of these, it's a single digit of molecule deals, a single digit of clinical projects, and the rest is enabling technologies, platforms, animal models, assays. And this is how we do it. And this is the rigor with which we apply the knowledge of the company to allow the innovation coming into the company come to fruition. When we do those projects, we align in Roche. This is how we do it. There are several models. In Roche, we align with internal processes. The government committees that look at our innovation in Roche coming from outside are the same as those which look at internal innovation. That ensures that the standards are the same. It also ensures that once we have a project, you have a lot of advocates that are happy to take the project on board. Other companies or other times in Roche, we had private budgets where people could do single, small committees decisions. And the challenge with this is that the small committee makes a decision to bring in-house the project, and then budget need to be found to develop the innovation, and then the internal people have all their pipeline because they haven't sat idle, they have a lot to do, and then there is no motivation to pull the effort necessary to develop the innovation. And I would say something that I think is really critical, which is, as a pharma company, if we bring in external innovation, we owe it to the patients, to the biotech, to the scientists who have developed this innovation to give our best efforts to develop these external projects. And quite frankly, many times I've killed projects if I felt that either internal expertise or internal motivation was not there. Then I prefer to get another company to do the deal because it's a fairer way to do it. Because signing a deal is just a detail. It's just the beginning of the adventure of the molecule. And you should not get all excited about deal making. You should get all excited about medicine getting to patients. So the unmet medical need, I will go very quickly, but you know, many diseases are not taken care of appropriately. I will not even go into the geographic disparity. Many of you work on this. This is not what we focus on when we look at science, but for sure, when you see what happens in bacteria or virology or even cancer treatment in many developing markets, you realize that the gap in taking care of patients is huge. And there is clearly a whole industry and a whole field of activities that should take place so that women who suffer from breast cancer in Africa have access to the medicine that exists in developed countries and the same diagnostic, or at least something that can also detect the tumors at a reasonable stage. As you probably know, most breast cancer in those regions get detected only at the metastatic state. And at the metastatic state, not only the cancer is much harder to treat, but the hope for patients is much slimmer. So there is a whole effort happening right now between the pharma industry and many NGOs to try to change that situation. Besides that, what we can see is in many disease areas, there is a global health crisis, for sure in bacteria and virology. Many pharma companies are re-entering anti-infectives, and every time you do a business model of an anti-infective, you really have to catch your breath, because if you look at the pricing assumptions, most of the time you have the impression you're going to launch into a project that will not make any money. And then you have to step back and think, well, if so many people are suffering from multi-drug resistance infections, then there has to be a business model that works. So let's work on good science, and let's trust that decisions taken 5 years, 10 years from now are going to be the right one to encourage a virtuous circle of developing more medicine. We will all live very old. You guys will live even older than me. But unfortunately, the later part of our life isn't great. No matter how much exercise we do and how much green tea we drink, chances are the last 10 years of our life or 15 years, if we are lucky, aren't going to be great, because dementia is an epidemic. And how can we better understand the brain? How can we better develop our medicine? How can the patent situation be such that it will encourage us to do clinical trials in dementia? This is important because right now it is clear that neuroscience is the next frontier to be tackled. And many pharma companies are into the challenges of curing Alzheimer, but let's see how the data will pan out, and let's see if our generation is going to be the one tackling that disease. Cancer, 30% of us in this room will suffer from this disease. So it's also a disease you are in many ways lucky to have, because it's a disease of elderly people. And by the way, today, the great news is 75% of youngsters who get cancer actually get cured. So this is a disease that we cure better and better. And the great news is that it's coming to be a chronic disease. Way back when you had the melanoma, metastatic melanoma, there was really no hope. Nowadays, with cancer immunotherapy, you can hope to see the next generation. So this is really great news, but it requires still a lot of work. But the unmet medical need is still there, and it will take still probably a decade to be able to do a dramatic difference and call truly cancer a chronic disease. When we work in the pharma industry, we always think about launching the drug and then it will lose its patent. There is also a great thing about our medicine is that even when it's losing patent and some of us disengage into promoting the medicine, it continues to save lives. And I was watching Severin's talk in this Right Forum a few years ago, our CEO, and he talked about Bactrim saving more lives than the First and Second World War has taken away. So, and this is today a drug that has no patent, but continues to save life around the world. And this is also something that makes us very proud and very excited. So there will be opportunities and challenges. Let me tell you, first one is that we're able to understand better and better mechanisms behind diseases. This is the example of the lung adenocarcinoma with all the mutation and expression that you see in one of them. You know, I was of the generation of not so long ago launching medicine in lung adenocarcinoma, so either you were KRAS mutated or not, or EGFR expressed or not, so this was already complex enough. Forget about this now. We're here, and we're trying to make some sense out of it, and then on top of that, you have PD-L1 expression. So it is, and then you have to try to combine to better understand which patient should get what drug, and once you understand that, then try to combine the maximum of drug so that you prolong the life of patients. This is a massive amount of data, like we've never seen before. And decisions can only be made nowadays with understanding this data and having designed the right clinical trial at the right time. So by the time the data comes out, you're able to actually use it to treat your patients. And the big fear we have every now and then is by the time the trial is done, which takes 3, 4, 5, 6 years, the medicine, the field has evolved so much that the data is obsolete because something else is happening. And patients are being recruited to enter new trials for the best of them, but for the challenge of all of us in our pharma companies. So we put patients through very strong screening. As you know, we've done a number of deals in the healthcare IT fields in Roche. And the point is to be able to, in many, many ways, understand the tumor at its finest level between DNA and RNA, and trying to understand this information at the same time. So not to take tons of tumors and hope that you can do tests and tests and tests all over the time. What you have is to be able to do this early on before selecting a treatment or before selecting a trial. So you have to have at the same time not only the medicine evolving and the clinical trials evolving, but also everything that has to do with diagnostic evolving in a dramatic way. And what we're seeing today is that the diagnostic field is also evolving very rapidly with the understanding of tumors in a better fashion and in a deeper fashion. And this is a rapidly evolving healthcare IT market. So you cannot read anything, so don't worry, I also can't read anything. What is happening, as we see, is that tons of players are entering this field. They all want a stake out of it. In a way, pharma is a very small player of healthcare IT. We've historically understood clinical trials, diseases, treatments better than anybody else, but you have the Google and the Oracle and the IBM who now want to be there. And they want, in many ways, they want to own a piece and possibly a large piece of the healthcare market. And the question is, who is going to do what's right so that at the end of the day, we're in an environment where we develop the best possible treatments to take care of patients. Not a matter of owning the data to make more business, not a matter of owning the data to cut the cost, but owning the data to invest in this data to turn into knowledge so that you can take care in a better way of patients. And we're only at the beginning of this. Many of us are making bets. We partner with each other with data privacy and regulators that have to also evolve. We won't see this coming to fruition tomorrow, but it won't take long. And some of the decisions that will be made in the next few years, I would venture in the next 5 years, are going to determine how the health is going to be taken care for the next decade. And that's some of the track we're going to take are not going to be reversible. So it is extremely important that the pharma and the biotech and the IT companies work together in transparency and in ethics so that we take the right decision for investing this intelligence into good patient care. So the idea is you have the data at the center, and you can either get two virtuous circles, one of them getting you to better R&D because you have more information, so you're able to segment finer your patient population and your medicine, and then you can develop finer trials that target specific questions that need to be answered, and then you have a more efficient R&D, and you can even sometimes not even need to design a clinical trial because maybe the combination of your clinical trial data with your real-life outcome will be able to show directions of approvals that were not thinkable without a trial in the past. You will also probably, through healthcare IT, get better patient care because patients are being more and more connected. They want to be an actor of their own life. Physicians want to dialogue constantly with patients to be aware of side effects of medicine or understand better the outcome of the medicine they prescribe. So over time, we can envision that this wealth of data can turn in value into the healthcare system. And that's what we have in mind. So how are we going to attain new levels? It's not going to be molecules who will take us there. It's not going to be data who will take us there. It's not going to be more money invested behind our R&D. It's going to be people like you, talents that really believe in what they do, work hard to developing the knowledge over time. So this is about being the best talents. Fostering smart decision. So smart decision is a combination of great knowledge, true courage, and amazing resilience. Because many times you've made a decision, it's a trial and error. You made a decision, it didn't turn out right. As I said earlier on, most of what we do in clinical trial doesn't turn into positives. But you should take the failure. Severino often says we should celebrate failure. But you should really absolutely take failure and learn from it. So you invest in your next endeavor in a smarter way, and eventually you do find solutions to questions that are unanswered. And finally, rigor is extremely important. Because of the high rate of failures, you can quickly go into, I have an instinct, or I want to go a bit beyond the usual process. I'll decide things in a small committee. It will go faster. You can do that. You can always do. I would say everything is allowed. But you have to make sure to keep rigor. Because if you want to learn correctly from what you do, rigor is critical. So again, these are just a few examples. The most important thing is who you are as an individual in what you do and how you surround yourself with peers so that you truly continue to believe in your mission day in and day out, when it goes well, but also when it doesn't, so that you stay focused on your mission, and your mission being to think about the patient and take care of the patients. We often say we want a first-in-class medicine. We want best-in-class medicine. I have never met a company who doesn't want either first-in-class or best-in-class, by the way. Maybe we can just agree to just want to do what's best for patients. And it's complex. It's not always rewarding. But you're the next generation to do this, and I want to thank you for being focused and getting it done. Thank you. I'm ahead of time. Fantastic.
So thank you, Sophie, for fantastic big picture. Does anybody have any questions for Sophie?
Hello. Can everybody hear me?
Scream. I will hear you.
Hello.
Hello, my name's Aisha. I'm a bioinformatics PhD student from King's College London. Thanks very much for that very interesting talk. You mentioned that the molecular information, there's a growth of molecular data currently out there, and there are currently projects in the US and the UK, like the 100 Genomes Project, which Roche has also taken part of. So do you think that because big data is now growing, there's also a huge question of the ethics and regulation of such data. And you say there are so many players and so many people are entering this very quickly. Do you think we will see a solution to this in the next 5 years? Is the solution a mix of regulation and innovation? And what's Roche's and your thoughts on this?
So we have to manage this. I think if we just let it be and hope it will be okay, others will decide for us. I've all my career in the pharma industry, so obviously I'm a bit biased, and I think we have a mission. I have a mission in life, which is to defend the interest of patients with drug development and managing medicine. So I think that I could say it will all fall into place. I don't think so. When you see what is happening with our everyday life now being on a device, I'm getting scared. You get emails from promotional emails that you don't think you should get, but somehow you did some searches, and suddenly they have you with a profile, and they know how to target you. They can install a microphone in your telephone, and suddenly you're getting things that you don't know why. So it's called a cookie, so it's not as scary. I call it a microphone. So I think that the industry has to take this very seriously. It's always very difficult to align industry. So I cannot tell you this is going to be obvious and easy, but I just do hope that my colleagues take this situation very seriously and will team up to make sure that ethics and patient well-being at the forefront of what we do. So I cannot tell you what, there is a few initiatives between pharma to build accelerators together or pre-competitive landscape activities. So we have some of this. I would say I don't think this is a solution to a better dialogue between academia and pharma. The challenge is that when we approach academia, we want to be able to retain rights later on. But oftentimes, the innovation is so early on that there is nothing to retain, actually. You should just build that relationship and hope it will turn into medicine eventually. But then it's a bit hard to motivate yourself and to allocate funds behind this because you have other pressure on the finance side so that if you invest here, you cannot invest in other places. I would say it's very much of an individual company strategy. Some companies have invested massively into academia, to the point of having, almost a building on sites of universities. And I think this is not a bad model because they're able to welcome scientists and help them to create startups. We in Roche have been more cautious. We are a lot more targeted. And I would say maybe the solution is to make sure there is enough events where scientists meet around specific topics, because at the end of the day, it's the scientists who decide how much collaboration there should be. So scientist conversations seem to me the best avenue for making sure that the dialogue is right between academia and pharma.
Hi, I'm Chiara and I work for AstraZeneca in Boston. I have a question. You mentioned that we are striving towards making cancer a
Chronic.
kind of a long-term chronic disease. Now, my question is that enough? Are we thinking big enough for the patients? And how do you explain to the outside world that already has a stigma on pharma that is not a purely business decision in terms of something that will just bring a lot of revenue throughout the years?
That's very interesting what you say. I sent my son to do an internship, a few days in a cancer center because I wanted him to be a doctor. I thought if my son is a doctor, I'm safe. Unfortunately, I think he's going to be a lawyer. So there he is, a little one sitting next to an oncologist and in lung cancer. So this was like some challenging days. And he comes back and says to me, "But Mom, your interest is not to cure patients, right? Because if they're cured, you don't sell anything. So you want them to stay long on your medicine." And I was like, what the hell? So I just have this same feeling. You could be my daughter. So let's be very clear. Of course we want to cure people. Of course we want to cure people. This is valid for cancer, but this is valid for any disease we work. We have scientific training. When we wake up in the morning, we don't have in mind, let's sell the maximum to this one person. We have the hope that you can cure people. Unfortunately, in the case of cancer, curing metastatic cancer, probably, your generation or the generation after maybe will be able to do it, and I don't even know, because once the tumor is everywhere, it's a different body you're talking about. So in a way, I put the bar a bit lower, because if I tell you I want to cure metastatic breast cancer, but if you already can live 10 years, 15 years, if you can die of something else, it's not bad. It doesn't mean you have to be on a treatment forever. And by the way, you will never be on the same treatment forever. In cancer, you're never treated by one molecule forever long term. So I just wanted for the record, I want it to be very clear. Chronic is in a sense of dying of something else, of being able to live long enough to raise your kids. So if you spend time in an oncology practice, you really feel that way. And then there's some cancer you really can cure, breast cancer, colorectal cancer, even metastatic colorectal cancer you can cure nowadays. So this is fantastic. But as an industry, we want to cure patients to begin with.
So I'm afraid that's the end of the session. But please can everyone put their hands together for Sophie Kornowski-Bonnet.